Powerful and provocative, prophetic and practical,
Have you ever found yourself?
Are you dating for that person?
informative and
I feel
inspirational.
every bit of it. Like, I'm not trying to waste my
How you gonna do better if you don't know what better looks like? I do. Come on, let's talk about it with me, the mind massager.
Four shares already? Wow, on this beat. 2 or 3 of them. All righty. Y'all share this. I'm going to get started in a moment. That's the same mic I hadn't changed. Same mic I've had for about 2 years. Get this over here. Alrighty. I forgot how to work this thing. I hadn't used it in so long. All right, do me a favor, y'all. Come on in the room, tap in, share this information with friends, and let them know that James Kirkland is live and in living color online. I'm getting ready to have a discussion with you tonight, and I hope you don't mind if you don't have anything. There ain't no football on. Hey Viola, hi, hello Myra. No football on. Another hey, from Columbia, okay. Columbia, all right. Yeah, no distractions. Let's have a talk tonight. I've took a little unplanned sabbatical. I wasn't on the last couple of weeks. Thankfully I've been working. So I was kind of tired. And sometimes you do kind of need a mental break, And so when the mental break came, mental break, but I had had to go through some physical fatigue, and I'm cool with that. I'm cool with that. So how you doing? What's up? What it do? Time for another episode of the Intellectual Stew with yours truly, James Kirkland. And like I said, I'm excited to be on tonight. I see my friends, Viola, I see Lisa, I see Myra. I'm sure some more people will jump on hopefully in a little while so we can start this discussion. I want to talk about tonight Well, actually, I'm gonna tell you how the story emanated before I tell you what I'm gonna talk about. You can, if you can read behind me, you can see it. But I'm gonna tell you how this emanated, and then I will give you the title. Last week, I was riding with a friend of mine, homegirl. Well, she became a friend. We were working together, and you know, when people find out that you're a preacher, everybody want to have a conversation, right? You know, they want, if the conversation always becomes theological, and they want to ask every biblical question and put this undue pressure on you that you didn't even ask for. You know, I'm looking for something right now. Excuse me. Yeah, they put this undue pressure on you that you didn't ask for. So this particular night, and I'm tired. You know what I'm saying? Myra is. You said welcome. Myra's been a panelist on the show. She's just on vacation in Colombia. But anyway, so this young lady, we were riding across town, and she said, "Well, what's your favorite biblical story?" You know, and I had worked like 11 hours that day. So if I work 11 hours, I'm mentally tired. So anything that kind of requires thought, I'll give you a very vague answer, you know, really, really vague answer, because I'm tired mentally and everything. So when she asked me, said, "What's your favorite story?" I said, "I got a lot of favorite stories. You know, I don't just have one favorite story." Um, so what's up, Dwayne? And so after I told her that I had a lot of favorite biblical stories, I felt kind of convicted. You know, I said, you know what, let me circle back. Let me go ahead, and I said, you know what? I put a little thought into it, Dwayne. I said, when she asked the question, what's my favorite biblical story? I put a little thought into it. Initially, I had no thought because I'm tired. I needed a mental break. I worked all day. But then I said, let me put some thought into this. And immediately my thoughts went to Joseph, the story of Joseph from Genesis, I think chapter 37, 39, one of them, all the way through chapter 50. My story, that, you know, it went there, you know, and immediately, without reading, you know, and I got a decent memory, but my mind immediately went to Genesis chapter 50, verses 19 and 20. More specifically, verse 20, where it said, "You thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good, to save much people alive," you know. And so I'm listening to, man, I'm you know, reviewing this with my mind's eye. And so I get home because my spirit's kind of arrested now. My spirit's kind of arrested. So I get home and I open up the Bible. And when I open up the Bible, I go a verse before to verse 19. And verse 19 said, where Joseph said to his brothers, "Fear not, for am I in the place of God?" That's what he said. "Fear not, for am I in the place of God?" It was a question. And I thought about that because I thought about Joseph's passage to get to the place where he was, because Joseph said, in essence, that he was in the place of God, no matter all the things that he had gone through. Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you something as we get ready to kind of build this tonight. Have you ever been done dirty? Real talk. I mean, just honestly, have you ever been done dirty? Has anyone ever betrayed you? Has anyone ever lied on you? Have you ever felt rejected? And my question, if you've ever found yourself in one of those categories, how did you handle it? With someone trying to sabotage you, someone doing you dirty, someone lying on you, someone rejecting you, how did you handle it? And if you've ever, drop a comment right quick if you've been in that situation where someone tried to sabotage you, but you ended up coming out better. Because what we view in chapter 50 is chapter 50 Joseph. And chapter 50 Joseph is a Joseph that has gone through the vicissitudes of life. He's gone through some tough time. What's going on, Cynthia? He's gone through tough times. He's been betrayed. And the thing about it is he's been betrayed by people who were supposed to be the closest to him. Drop a comment. If you've ever been in a situation where someone tried to sabotage you, but you came out better, drop a comment, or just say, "That's me." Just put that in the comments. Say I can relate, whatever. Say what's going on. But tonight's episode for me is personal because we're talking about Joseph. And Joseph had every reason to be bitter. But instead of being bitter, Joseph chose to see the bigger picture. And what he did was he stood before the same brothers who threw him away and said, "Am I in the place of God? Go read it. Go read it. Genesis 50, chapter 19. Yeah, you cut him off peacefully. I get it. And that would be a good thing to cut him. I mean, that seemed like the right thing to cut him off. But Joseph said, am I in the place of God? That statement hits different for me because Joseph realized that everything that he went through what positioned him for purpose. Isn't that crazy? So tonight, what I want to do, if y'all help me, I mean, share this with somebody, because somebody else is just like me. Somebody else is just like Joseph. You can really look at where you are now and look in the rearview mirror of your life and say, you know what? Y'all did me wrong, but it's cool. And the reason it's cool is because I'm in the place that God wanted me to, that God really wanted me to be. And you don't realize how God used you while you were conspiring against me, while you were trying to sabotage me, while you were scandalizing my name, while you were lying on me, while you were doing all of those things. God said, you know what? I'm using you. That's just like the eagle. The eagle, when he soars, right? But it seemed like when he runs into a storm that he would run into the storm. But the eagle's wings are strong enough that when he runs into the storm, he uses the pressure from the storm to take him higher. Listen, when we handle the storms of life and we take on eagle's wings, what God does is God uses that pressure to take us to new levels and new heights in him. And the higher we get, eagles don't soar in packs. Buzzards soar in packs. Eagles don't soar in packs. See, that's why anybody that knows me, you don't ever really see me in a crowd. That ain't what I do. Eagles don't soar in packs. You know what I'm saying? Eagles soar by themselves. Eagles soar alone. They hunt alone, right? Because they use pressure. The pressure of life to go to heights that most people can't even go through. So I can relate to Joseph when Joseph said, yeah, you know what? Y'all did me wrong, but I'm cool, because if you didn't do me wrong, I wouldn't be where I am now. And I can honestly say, Joseph said in chapter 50, verse 19, I can honestly say that I'm in the place of God. Can you honestly say that that you are where God wants you to be? And when you look through the rear view mirror of life and you stop being bitter and look at the bigger picture, you can really you ought to be able to testify and say that it was because of what I went through that I grew through. Come on, man. So here we are tonight. I want to walk through Joseph's process. I hope y'all have time. I've been off for 2 weeks, so I might talk for a little bit longer tonight. But here we are. The first thing Joseph went through was the pit. Somebody say the pit. Type that in the comment. And come on, type that in the comments. The pit, the pit, the pit, the pit, the pit. What was considered to be rejection was actually redirection. Because Joseph was rejected by his brothers. Now, Joseph teaches us a lot, because when God gives you a vision, he doesn't give it all to you at the same time. He doesn't do that. He doesn't give it to you, because, and that's why Paul, when Paul was talking, Paul said that which we know, we only know in part. See, if God gave it all to us at one time, he would literally blow our minds. It would kind of be like pouring the Atlantic Ocean in a Dixie cup. We couldn't contain the vision if he gave it all to us at one time. So what he does is he gives it to us morsel by morsel, piece by piece, a little by little, give us a part, so that when we eventually, through the process of time, when we understand it, like Grandmama and them said, when we understand it better by and by, we can take the the advice of the prophet Habakkuk, we can write the vision, make it plain so that those who see it may understand it and may run with it. But here's the problem, Brother Dwayne. When he told his vision to his brothers couldn't see it that way. How many times have we been in church, had a vision, told it to somebody else, and then all of a sudden they said, I didn't see it. You wasn't supposed to see it. God didn't show it to you. But if I articulate it properly, when God gives it to me, when before I articulate, I analyze. I take this vision and I break it down. I put this puzzle together so that I can understand it. But Joseph is talking to his brother. Hey, I had a dream, and there were 9 kinds, and there was this one kind, and all of a sudden, this one, all these others bowed down to one, and all of a sudden they said, "What you trying to say? We supposed to bow down to you?" Daddy was right in the room, but didn't mediate the situation. Scripture said he heard what he said. He said but he observed the saying, but he didn't respond. So all these brothers in the house, they're building up animosity towards their brother simply because he's a dreamer. And that's why you got to be careful when you're a dreamer who you associate with yourself, because everybody's not excited when God starts speaking in and through you. The first thing they ask is, who does he think he is? Who died and left him God? But if you don't know, simply because you wasn't there, you don't know when, you don't know where. Do I have to? Let me see. He said in the beginning, Joseph talked too much. And I can imagine, don't throw shoes at me. I can imagine, because here it is. Israel complicated matters by making him that coat. Get all these brothers, but he only makes a coat for one and makes a coat of many colors. Joseph parades around the property with his coat on. One day his father says, "Go see what your brothers are doing. Take them this." He goes towards them. As he gets closer to them, they see him. They can't handle the vision, and then he's wearing a representation of the vision because now he has this coat of many colors on, and when they see him, they conspire to kill him. Thank God Reuben stepped in and said, we're not going to get rid of him. We're not going to kill him. Instead, let's throw him in the pit. His plan was to come back and get him later on. But can you imagine Joseph at the bottom of the pit? You know what I think he said, Brother Dwyer? I bet he's sitting there with his arms folded, legs crossed, saying, "Me and my big mouth." Because so many times we've invited the enemy in by sharing what God. Do you realize that the enemy is not omnipresent? He's not everywhere at the same time. Do you realize that the enemy is not omniscient? He does not know all things. So the thing is, the way he finds out is when he eavesdrops on our conversations. So Joseph is talking and telling, and the enemy is listening, and now he's found himself in a pit. They threw him in the pit. Why? Because they could not handle his dream. Think about that. The reason why he's in a pit right now is simply because the people who were the closest to him couldn't handle his dream. How many relationships have you lost because people couldn't understand you? I'll wait. Has that ever happened has that ever happened to you? If that's happened to you, just type it in the comments. Say, "That's me." Say, "That's me." If that's ever happened to you, type that in the comment for me. Say, "That's me." I found myself isolated when I should have been celebrated. At least I thought I should have been separated and celebrated. Say, "That's me. That's me. That's me." If you've ever been hurt by family members, if you've ever been hurt by friends or people who were supposed to be protecting you or people who were supposed to have your back, type "That's me." Say, "That's me" in the comments. Say, "I'm him. I'm him." Joseph could have died in that pit. Reuben even said that even when they talked about killing him, they said, "We'll kill him and then we'll say that some wild animal came and ate him up." And just think, he's in the pit and he could have easily been destroyed. But see, when we realize that the enemy is in me, that'll change the way we y'all better listen. And I want y'all to talk to each other in the comments too. Talk to each other. Joseph could have died. He could have given up. But here's what healed Joseph, here's what healed Joseph. See, because you got, this could have been bitter Joseph. But what we see in chapter 50 is healed Joseph. And healed Joseph doesn't have the same conversation as bitter Joseph, right? Because I can imagine bitter Joseph, when he's being sold into slavery, when he's on the auction block, he had a totally different conversation as bitter Joseph as he did. But healed Joseph understood this later on in life, that the pit was not the final destination, but the pit was the portal that was going to propel him into his purpose. Oh, I said something right there. See, listen, the pit that you go through in life is not the final destination. It holds no position of permanency. So the last thing I want you to do is put up a mailbox, because don't change your address, because a pit is temporary. You're not going to be in the pit that long. The pit is not permanent, but instead it is a portal that will propel you towards your purpose. And understand that we have many pits on the pit. We have many pit stops. Oh God, here it is. We have many pit stops on the path towards our purpose. And sometimes one of the pit stops is a pit. What is a pit? A pit is a low place. The pit is a low. Has anyone ever hurt you so bad that it left you? If you haven't shared this, I would. Has the pit ever hurt you so bad that it left you in a low place? I mean, I've brokenness. I mean, I've talked, I'm removed from my marriage. I'm healed now. Thank God I'm healed. I told somebody the other day, I'm in the best place I've been in a long time mentally. But after my marriage and my divorce, and I was in a low place, I shouldered all of the responsibility. I realized what I had forfeited, because I realized I didn't lose it. I lost it, because Paul said, count all things but lost. The word lost in the Greek means I forfeited. The devil does not have any power to take anything away from you that God has given you. You forfeited it. You gave it away. You're drawn away of your own lust. I forfeited it, and it left me in a low place. So many times we're in a low place. Sometimes people put us in a low place, but sometimes we put ourselves in that low place. And Joseph was in a low place, but healed Joseph could look and say, yeah, that was part of my pilgrimage. That was my path. I had to go through it. And truth be told, some of you right now feel like you're in a pit season. Be real, talk to me. Right now, you feel like you are in a pit season. You feel like you're in a low place. You feel like you're in a pit season. But I want to encourage you. May I encourage you? Please let me encourage you. If you are in a pit, if you are in a low place, hear me and hear me well. You were not buried in the low place. You were planted in the low place. Oh, God, I'm preaching better than y'all letting on tonight. You were not buried in the low place. God planted you in the low place. And sometimes when you've been planted, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, you got to grow down before you grow up. And when you grow down as roots, you're looking for a rock to cling on to, because the rock gives you the support that's necessary. Watch this. When you are in the low place and you trying to come out of it, you better connect to something that's going to give you strong roots to be able to stand against what's coming next. Because guess what? Sometimes you will be sold into slavery. Sometimes you will be put on the auction block. And the thing about it is, when you put on the auction block, you don't know who your master or who it is that you're going to have to serve. But thank God Joseph ended up at Potiphar's house. Because in the Potiphar's house, Joseph got favor, man. I'm talking about in Potiphar's house. I mean, he was in charge of everything. They gave him the checkbook, man. He made sure the light bill was paid. He made sure the gas bill was paid. He made sure the phone bill was paid. He made sure everything. He made sure that all of the workers got their checks. He made sure the house was clean. I mean, he made sure everything was on point because Potiphar pretty much put him in command. But you got to be careful, brothers, when you allow your woman allow your woman to see somebody else being the authoritative figure in your house, because Potiphar was letting Potiphar was letting Joseph be the man of the house. His wife started gravitating towards Joseph, and when Joseph rejected her advances by saying, "Look at no, I can't mess up on my master, because if I mess up on my master, I'm gonna forfeit everything I've done. He trusts me, and I don't want to mess up this trust that I have built with my master." And she didn't like the rejection. So you know what she did? She made a false accusation. She said that he tried to rape her. He tried to take advantage of her. Come on, talk to me, somebody. But can I tell you something? That sometimes false accusations will build your character, especially when you know that you're not guilty. If you have not reflected like this, like love, something like this for me, please, 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 please. Listen, Joseph said, "I'm not going to mess up." This man is a few days ago, I was in the pit. Now I'm sleeping in Potiphar's house. I feel like I've been promoted. And so since I've been promoted, I'm not going to forfeit the blessing that has been bestowed upon me. But do you realize that sometimes you can be doing the right thing and still end up in the wrong situation? Because who understands the mind of God? You don't know. See, God will take mess and turn mess into a miracle. He took Naaman's dirty situation. Naaman had leprosy, but let him get clean in a dirty river called Jordan. He'll revert some stuff he does. It does not make sense. He promotes him, takes him to Potiphar's house, and this looks like it could have been the destination. Joseph gets out of the pit. Things are looking up. He's serving in Potiphar's house. He's winning. But just when he gets comfortable, here comes a false accusation. Potiphar's wife lies on him. All things work together for the good. Yeah, absolutely. Romans 8:28. Yeah, sometimes the pit comes because we are pursuing what we want and not what he called. Absolutely. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But let me ask you something. Have you ever been blamed for something you didn't do? Maybe on your job, maybe in a relationship, maybe even in ministry. If you have, just type in the comments, say, "I've been there." Say, "I've been there. I've been there. I've been there. I've been there. I've been there." You've been blamed for something you didn't even do. And Joseph could have, because he got put in the pit just because he had a dream from people who were the closest to him. Now he's at his master's house, Potiphar, doing what he's supposed to do, rejects the advances of a woman that he could have taken advantage of. So that means all brothers don't want what you got, sis. Some people will turn you down. But could have done that, but now this woman is lying. And you know, Dwayne, you know, bruh, that if the wife said it, he got to believe the wife. So here he is now in trouble for something that he didn't do. He could have let bitterness take over, but instead he looked back later and realized God used that season to build his integrity. Have I got a witness? He said, "Oh, you better believe that woman or else." Absolutely. So here it is. Here's a question. Here's a question. Here's a question. You've been there. What? You've been there. You've been there. Absolutely. Here's a question. 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 Question is, what season in your life taught you integrity, patience, or strength, even though you hated going through it? What season taught you integrity in patience or strength, even though you hated going through. You say you've been there. What season? What was it? What was that season like? Because in that season, you could have easily been bitter. And be honest, I'm gonna raise my hand. I'll raise my hand. I'll go first. Y'all don't have to raise y'all's hand. I'll go first. In that season, I was bitter. My conversation was different. I mean, because sometimes in those moments, I did complain. I mean, everybody lying on me. Everybody mistreating me. In fact, I had a they mentality. It wasn't my fault. It was them. I didn't see myself in the situation. I didn't see myself as a pawn in the process. I saw myself as a victim. And when you see yourself as a victim, it's hard to become a victim. Hold on, drop my phone. If you see yourself as a victim, it's hard to see yourself as a victor. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? If you see yourself as a victim, it's hard to see yourself. Joseph, even in this moment, he maintained his integrity. What season in your life taught you integrity? If you've been there, even though you hated going through it, talk to me. Let me talk. I want to read some of your comments. Let me read Lisa's comment. Lisa said, had I never been pushed, I wouldn't have gained the strength to keep going. Give me something where you don't want to be I'm being nosy. Let me go. I want kind of some specific situation. He said, Dwayne said, for me, the stormy season for past divorce, angry in the gym, throwing up, iron like it owed me something, 0 to 60 in 40 seconds. Absolutely. I get it. Absolutely. It'll make you but it'll help you get through that season in your life. It'll help you get through it. Lisa says she had to deal with addiction. All of us have been through something, and those seasons taught us integrity and patience, because we can only hemorrhage for so long before we bleed out. That was prophetic. We can only hemorrhage so long before we eventually bleed out. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? So after experiencing the pit and look like things were turning around, because honestly, the truth be told, Potiphar's house to Joseph probably looked like a good place to put up a mailbox. I mean, it looked like a good place on the pilgrimage to say, this is a good place where I can live out the rest of my days, especially when in comparing it to the pit. I went from a low place to what seems like a strong place, a powerful place, but now I'm being sentenced to the prison. Oh God, does that make sense? And Hill Joseph could even look back at the prison and say that moving from Potiphar's house to the prison was promotion. Now that Kirkland, that's oxymoronic. That don't make sense. How in the world could the prison be a promotion when I was just in Potiphar's house? When I was in Potiphar's house, I slept on 1,700 thread count sheets. When I slept in Potiphar's house, I pretty much had access to everything he had access to, with the exception of his wife, and I could have had her, but I had too much integrity. But now I'm being sentenced to the prison for something I didn't do. And Hill Joseph, chapter 50 Joseph, could look back at this prison and say that the prison was a promotion over Potiphar's house. That doesn't make sense. But when you understand that you are a part of the process, and you understand that God is processing you, that God is preparing you, he's propelling you, he's taking you to the next level, then you'll understand that promotions sometimes don't really look like promotions, because a promotion, it'll start out looking one way, but it'll end up a totally different way. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Because even in prison. Let me just say this. Let me say this to you. That when favor is on your life, favor will follow you wherever you end up. If you're in the pit, favor's still on your life. If you're at Potiphar's house, favor is still on your life. If you end up in prison, especially for doing the right thing, favor is in your house, and favor is on your life, and what you will become accustomed to realize later in life, or what you will come to discover, is that the prison was just a delay for your development. Yeah. Sometimes when you're locked up, tied up, tangled up with the cares of this world, you've been in a low place, and I remember one time, this is a true story. I was going through some financial difficulties. And I recognized it as a spiritual season. I did, because God talked me through it. I mean, it was like surgery with no anesthesia. It hurt, but he was talking me through it while he was working on me, right? So I'm going through it, and I was working this big deal, and I got a check, man. Probably Dwyer, man, it was about $9,000 or $10,000. It would probably take care of 3 months worth of bills, because it was a few years ago. And when I came out, all of a sudden I got this revelation that it wasn't permanent; it was temporary. This deliverance, it was just going to be a permanent. It was not going to be a permanent season. I was going to experience this abundance for a moment, but I was going to eventually have to go through another season. I was going to go from the pit. I was going to go from Potiphar's house, but I would end up eventually back in prison. God showed me, you're going to enjoy this season, but get ready, because the stormy season is coming again. And like a dummy, I prayed this prayer. I said, Lord, if you're taking me out to bring me back in, don't let me out. Let me stay in it. Why did I pray that prayer? Because he did. He let me stay in it. Let me stay in it. But now I better understand the prison, because now we get to the prison. Joseph is locked up. He's forgotten. He's overlooked. And for 2 years, he sits there waiting. Got to give him credit, because so many people didn't want to wait. They expired. They unalive. They gave up. They forfeited. They turned to other gods. They went after they tried to seek solutions and other sources other than that of the Savior, simply because they didn't want to wait anymore. And let me be honest, let's keep it real. The truth be told, waiting is hard. If waiting is hard, raise your hand. Raise your hand. Put a raise hand in the comment. If waiting is hard, that's why patience takes time, but patience comes on the heels of experience. That's why we have to go through things, right? And the more we experience, we kind of develop faith files, and we're able to look back and say, if God did it then, he can do it again, because there's no secret what God can do. What he's done for others, he can do the same for us too. So waiting is hard, but as we grow in grace and we develop more testimonies, and we understand that the tests have produced the testimony, then waiting becomes a little easier to do. How many of us right now, if we are honest, how many of us are in a waiting season right now? How many of us are in a waiting season right now? I don't know. Maybe you're waiting on a job. Maybe you're waiting on a relationship. Been alone for a season, and this season you feel like you're healed enough now. Because you know what? I don't think any of us will ever be totally healed, but we pray that we become healed enough, right? Because sometimes the healing that we need is in our next relationship, right? Because a faith that has never been tested is one that really cannot be trusted. So you can really be healed and not even know you're healed, right? Or you can think you're healed until you're in that moment and you're being tested in that moment, right? So you want to be healed, but you just don't know. So some of us are in a waiting season right now. We're waiting on a healing. We're waiting on a breakthrough. And if that's you, type "that's me." If you're in the waiting room of life, type "that's me." But here's what Joseph learned in that waiting season. And I pray that you learn the same thing, that God is not ignoring you, but God is preparing you. Joseph could say God was not ignoring him. That's what he came to discover. But God was preparing him, because in every facet and phase of life, Joseph's favor was shown every time. Let me see what Dwayne said. Dwayne said, I believe we are all in a waiting season. Even if we're experiencing greater experiences, it's still a waiting season for what he will show us next. Absolutely. Abso-freaking-lutely. We are all in waiting seasons. And guess what? And what you got to understand is that your delay is not your denial. Delay is not, hear me, warriors, is not denial. Just because God has not moved does not mean that he will not move. All that it means is that he has not moved yet. But they that wait, thank you, Cynthia. Cynthia said, they that wait on the Lord shall renew. Wait. The word wait is not sitting in a position of doing nothing. The word wait in the Hebrew means they that twist unto, or they that connect with. It's like a lamp cord that has to be plugged in the socket, laying on the floor beside the socket. It has no power until I connect it into the socket. Therefore, if once it waits on it, when I plug it in, now it has power. While we're waiting on the Lord, when the time comes, when the power supply comes through, then we shall renew our strength. We shall be mount up on wings as eagles. We shall run and not get weary. We shall walk and not faint, if we learn how to wait on the Lord. And here's a question I have for you. I have another question for you. And those that are eavesdropping, I see some of y'all coming in. Say hello. Come on in. What's something you've been waiting on that's testing your faith right now? It's a good time. You know what? This is a good place to, if you need some people to agree with you in prayer, because all of us are right now are with one mind, one accord. If it's something that you're waiting on right now and that the Lord is testing your faith right now, what is it? What is it? And what can we believe God for? Because whatever it is, understand that we can encourage each other. Y'all encourage each other. But what is it that you're waiting on? What are you waiting on? Understand, while you're waiting, delay is not denial. Because if you know the story, if you've not read it, you really should. If you've never read the story of Joseph, you really should. Because after he goes to the prison, he meets a butler and a baker. And the butler and the baker, Joseph has another dream, and he shares his dream with his brother. Okay, launching my vision. Y'all encourage Lisa in the comments. She's talking about launching her vision into reality and education. But as he shares this, as he has his dream, he shares it with the butler and the baker, and one of them was going to be, as the dream came to pass, one of them would be killed, but one would be restored back into the king's palace, back into the Pharaoh's palace. And so, in order for him, so when he gave this prophecy, it came to pass. The one was killed; he was beheaded, or killed. He was executed. That's what I meant to say. And the other one was restored back to his rightful place in the Pharaoh's palace. And now when he got there, he forgot his promise, because his promise to Joseph was that when I'm restored, I'm going to tell Pharaoh about this cat that I met in prison that has the gift of interpreting dreams. Is she the only one that has something she's waiting on that's testing their faith right now? Y'all go ahead and encourage each other in the chat. Y'all go talk to each other for a moment for me, please. So now what happens is the Pharaoh has a dream. He's doing what he's doing what he's supposed to. He's processing, but he's not producing because he has a dream. But the dream troubled him so bad that he was looking for an interpretation that he just could not find. So he's praying, he's hoping, he's really troubled. He's losing sleep at night because he's unable to find the interpretation for this dream. So he brings several people in for them to interpret the dream. All of these wise men, all these people who call themselves soothsayers and whatnot, and they had the gift and all this. And some people think they got, that's why I get nervous about some of y'all's discerning spirit, because some of y'all act like y'all can get a discerning spirit out of Fruit Loop box or something. I thought that was a spiritual gift, but I get nervous about, whatever. Y'all do it how you do it. But anyway, they had all these cats that would hang around that were called into, but they couldn't interpret the dream. And it got to the point where the things would go badly for them if they did not interpret the dream. But all of a sudden, here this cat is that was in prison. The baker, he remembers this man in prison that had the gift of interpretation. He had the ability to interpret dreams. So they sent for Joseph while he was in prison. They bring him out of prison, clean him up, put robes on him, because there's a certain way you got to present yourself before the Pharaoh. Now he goes before Pharaoh. When he gets there, Pharaoh tells him the dream. And when he tells him the dream, eventually Joseph interprets the dream. And when he interprets the dream, he tells them that the famine is coming and that they got to get prepared for the famine and all these kind of things. And the next thing you know, Joseph has gone from being in the pit, from being in Potiphar's house, from being in prison, from being in the palace, and now he's second in charge. He's prime minister over all of Egypt. And he's been put in place to preserve the people from perishing in a famine. Oh, that was good, Kurt. Okay, that was good. All right, he preserved the people from perishing simply because he was given the ability and the favor to interpret dreams. Isn't that amazing? Isn't it amazing? Listen, because what you got to understand, brothers and sisters, is that when it's your time, God will elevate you. But he's not going to do it before time. God does not move in chronological time. He's not moved by your alarm clock. He's not worried about you becoming so alarmed and you panicking because things seem like that time is about to run out. Do you realize God can step in time, reverse time, turn time around, and change time? God doesn't move in the chronos. God moves in the kairos. God moves in the moment, in the twinkling of an eye. When you least expect, that's when God steps in and God can turn your whole situation around. So here he is. He's been promoted. He's no longer in the pit. He's no longer at Potiphar's house. He's no longer in prison. He woke up in a prison jumpsuit, but by nightfall, he's in Pharaoh's palace, second in command over all of Egypt. Somebody needs to hear this tonight. When it's your time, God will make sure the right people make sure the right people call your name. God will mention you in rooms that you've not even stepped foot in yet. Dwyer said Joseph's plan for Pharaoh is one that we need. We better get ready. It's getting late in the evening, and this is a good time to gather wealth. This is a good time. This is a good time, and God's favor is prevalent right now. I mean, if you are casting your net, let me speak prophetically for a moment. If you are casting your net, I'm telling you, cast it far and cast it wide, because as far as you can cast it, as far wide as you can cast it, you can pull in everything, but gather it and store it up. I was talking to some young people today, and we were talking. I said, I told them, I said, learn all you can and can all you learn. And they struggle with that can and all you learn. I had to explain to them what grandmama and them used to do when they would can vegetables and can preserves. Fruit is something that would have expired. It's preserved once you make preserves because it's been preserved. You put it through a process. Whatever you get in this season, put it in a see. There was so much power in those. There was so much power in those mason jars. I said something right there. Somebody, Dewey, I know you called it because you from Alabama. There was so much power in those mason jars because see what grandmama and them do, they pick that fruit. Then after they picked that fruit, they would peel the fruit. And then after they peeled the fruit, they would cut the fruit up. And then what my grandmama would do is she would leave the fruit out overnight because when you left the fruit out overnight, it kind of developed a tough little skin on the fruit, made it a little bit tougher. But then after she made the fruit tough, then she'll put it in a pan, you know, and season it with seasonal and cinnamon and sugar and all these different types of things. Then she'll turn the heat up because things would get hot. And then when the fruit got real hot, then it would change forms, right? It would kind of, you know, turn to different colors. And then all of a sudden when it started turning, are you still okay? I thought you meant my bad. So, but if fruit started turning colors, then she would put it, this little nasty looking concoction, right? She'd put it all in mason jars, and then all of a sudden she'd put that mason jar and seal it and put it in closets all around the house, you know, several mason jars all around the house. And 2, 3, 4 months later, you know, I saw those mason jars and I saw this fruit turning brown and didn't really look edible and didn't look like, you know, I mean, it didn't really look like that. But a few later, a little bit later on, you know, grandmama would wake me up and I smell biscuits and bacon and eggs and oatmeal and all. Cause we from Arkansas. We weren't raised on grits. We were raised on cream of wheat and oatmeal. And so what we would do at that time, right? I got grits later on. I did, you know, so, but after a while I wake up and then grandmama would go grab one of those jars. And when she grabbed those jars, she would take the top off. But I didn't realize it then, Dwyer, but I understand it now. When she took off, when she twisted the top off, the whole top didn't come off. I mean, the flat piece kind of stayed on top because that was what sealed the jar, right? It sealed. I see you, Cynthia. It sealed it. So after a while, even though it was twisted on top, if I wanted to get the top off, I had to, you know, pop that top off because all of that stuff was preserved because it was sealed. And that's why Joseph could handle the pit. That's why Joseph could handle the Potiphar's house. That's why Joseph could handle prison, is because a long time ago, he had already been sealed. And can I bring it home right quick? The reason why you can handle what you have handled in life, the reason why you're able to walk on water that would have drowned everybody else is simply because you have been sealed. And can I tell you something about that seal? That seal is until the day of redemption. When it's your time, God will make sure the right people call your name. Drop a couple of fire emojis in the chat if you think God is setting you up for something big. Just drop a few fire emojis. If you think God's setting you up for something big, drop some fire emojis in the chat. If you think he's setting you up, he said put it in hot water, and another teak is to turn it upside down. Oh, yeah, if the top if the top is stuck on, because it's sealed. That means ain't nothing getting in here. That means I'm marinating in my own juices. I mean, and sometimes I'm by myself. I don't want to be, you know, for a long time. I owe a lot of people apologies while I was going through what I was going through, because honestly, I was sealed and didn't want to be bothered, but people kept calling me and trying to be around me. And sometimes I'm trying to get you off of me, but you couldn't take the hint. So I was a little, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it, but I was healing. And sometimes when you heal, you feel scabs. Can we talk about it? Because scabs give proof that I'm healing, but I'm not healed. And sometimes I rush the process by picking the scab. Oh, God. Jesus. But when I really let it go through the process of time, I become healed. Here's the last question of the night. Because what Joseph experienced was a sudden shift. Who in here has ever experienced a sudden shift where everything changed overnight? I'm gonna tell you, a couple weeks ago, I was struggling. You know, I mean, I haven't worked a regular job, you know, in a while. I mean, I just get phone calls every month, and those bills, they usually amount to enough to pay my bills and have a little change. But I got calls didn't come last month, especially at the beginning of the month. And one gig that I had been doing for like 2 years straight, all of a sudden, it wasn't here, and that's like a lot of people. That's a month's salary, But here I am, but I wasn't stressing. But when it got a little low that morning, I prayed. I said, "All right, Lord, I need you to show up. I need you to show up, and I need you to show up in a tangible way today." I mean, I said I kind of gave him a time limit. Not that he's moved by my time limit, but I can ask what I will as long as it's according to his will, right? So I asked. I said, "Who? I said, God, I need you to show up." And so I got on the computer and started cutting up some video for the podcast and was working on some of my class. And all of a sudden I got a text, said, "Are you in town?" I said, "Yeah." "You working today or this week?" I said, "No." Then he called. He said, "I need you to come in for the rest of the week if you can come in." Cool. So I go work there for 7 days straight. What's going on, Emmanuel? I go there for 7 days straight. And so on the 7th day, a guy comes in, he sees me, shoots me the deuces, and he says, "I'm gonna call you." I said, "All right, cool." Next day he calls. He said, "Are you available the rest of the week?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "All right, cool. I got a gig. I need you to work for 4 days." Boom, pick up. And I get a nice little sum per day. And so I worked that. And so while I'm there, the guy at the other dealership called. He said, "Can you work this week?" I said, "No, I'm working somewhere else." He said, "Oh, he said, "You loser." Then he called me back and he said, "Well, call me Monday. I got something I need to talk to you about." I said, "All right, cool." So he called me Monday. He said, "Can you work the rest of the week?" I said, "Sure." So I came in, worked the rest of the week. And then, and so in other words, I've been working like 3 or 4 weeks. And like I said, I make pretty good wage per day. I'm not none of your business how much, but I told God what I needed and what could have been perceived as a low place. But I called the unseen as seen, asked God, told him what I needed. He put angels on assignment, phone calls started coming, and I'm all right. I'm okay now. I'm trying to decide, do I want to go on vacation next month? But it's because God can give you a sudden shift. It don't take God all year, all month, God can move in a moment. God can touch the heart of the king. God touched Pharaoh's heart, and Joseph went from being a prisoner to second in command. Isn't that amazing? Who here has ever experienced a sudden shift? A shift for everything. I want to hear your testimony. If I don't read them right now, I'm gonna come back and read over the comments. But whoever in here has God ever turned something around? He turned your mourning into dancing. What should have had you bitter, once you looked at it in the proper context, you realized that you were better and you experienced a sudden shift. Because you know what? A lot of times, the reason why our fire can't burn the way it should burn, here it is again. Here's a prophetic. The reason why a lot of people, the fire can't burn the way it should burn is simply because, here it is, you ready? It's because there are too many ashes on the altar. What ashes are you talking about, Kirkland? You haven't forgiven somebody you need to forgive. God gave you specific instructions. You knew he told you to do what he told you to do, but you didn't do it. Those are ashes on the altar. My father taught me a long time ago when he taught me how to build a fire. He said, if the fire is going to burn properly, you have to remove the ashes. Why? Because the fire needs oxygen to breathe. The ashes smother the flame. It removes the oxygen. The fire cannot burn like it should if there are still ashes on the altar. So the reason why some of you might not be functioning the way you think you should, or with the reason why you're stuck in that low place, yeah, it's cool. But it's cool. It's cool. It's cool because guess what? Even in those low places, even in the prison, even in Potiphar's house, even because think about it. On the path to purpose, we will experience many pit stops. Sometimes the pit stops will be perilous. Sometimes even in the pit stop, it would look like we're producing. But the pit, if we've not reached our final destination, if the palace was the intended destination, I don't care how many Potiphar's houses you experience along the way, the Potiphar's house was never meant to be a place of permanency. So Joseph could look back over his life and say, Lord, you brought me from a mighty long way, because I didn't understand it while I was going through it. In fact, sometimes I groaned while I was going through it, but I grew through it, because guess what? Now he's able to say, because guess what? At the end of it all, there's a famine in the land. There's only one place you can go and get food, and guess who's in control? Joseph. And then all of a sudden, here comes the same brothers who started this process by placing him in a pit. And when they came in, at first he didn't want them to recognize him, because he thought they were going to be afraid of him. He thought that if they recognized him, that they probably wouldn't ask, because they knew that he did him wrong. But Joseph did something that a lot of us have not done, and he really godly forgave his brothers. See, forgiveness is when you put something in a place where it no longer hurts anymore. I'm not holding you accountable. I forgive you. We done. I'm not going to punish you. And what Joseph could say is that everything in life was not a punishment. I thought my pit was punishment, and I thought you were the ones that put me through it. But I realized now my pit was a promotion. Thank you, God. And so therefore, I'm not upset with you. Come on in, bro. Tell me. In fact, go get my daddy. Y'all come on in. See, because the reason why, don't you be afraid, because all of these things had to happen. Because if you didn't do it, am I not in the place of God now? I'm right where God wanted me to be, even in enemy territory, in a polygamy nation, because we understood Egyptians worshiped other gods. But even in this moment, God, even now, there are saints at Caesar's house. I'm talking to somebody. Even now, there are saints that are in Caesar's house. Hear me well when I say that. God raised him up in the enemy nation, in the Pharaoh's land, in Egypt. God raised him up. That's why he can say, am I in the place of God? He realized the pit positioned him. The false accusations built his character. The delay developed him. But the palace was always the plan. Joseph could have been bitter, but instead he was better. Somebody needs to declare right now, I refuse to be bitter. Instead, I choose to be better. I refuse. Lisa said the pit stop caused her to lose everything she had. To talk about the tornado caused her to lose a car, unable to work. But I asked God for time to study and bring my vision to reality, and that's where I am. And I have peace and abundance in every area of life, sitting at home doing what I wanted to be doing. Now I'm ready for my next level. Absolutely. Understand, you when you look at that, you can say, I refuse to be bitter. I choose to be better. Who all chooses to be better? Who all chooses? Who all chooses to be better? Who all chooses to be better? You can be. Listen, the chapter 50 version of you is better than the chapter 39 or chapter 37 version of you. Why? Because you've gone through it. You're not the same person. Your experience has made you a better person. And that's a good thing. That's a powerful place to be in, to realize that things didn't make you bitter, but it made you better. And I want to. The phone line is open. The link is in the chat. If anybody has a testimony they want to share, I'll do that. Like I said, this is the first time I've been on in a couple of weeks. But this is a powerful lesson because it takes those that even like myself that probably participated in the blame game. It gives you a different perspective where you can say, y'all did do me wrong. Because at the end of the day, his brothers, if you look at it, we're human, man. If you cut me, I'm a bleed. Yeah. I mean, if you step on my toe, I'm gonna say ouch. And the older I get, my bones might not be as strong as they used to be. So if you step on that toe right, you might break it. You know, I've stumped my toe and said ouch. So if you step on it, it's gonna hurt. And typically you're gonna get a reaction, right? And it might not be the reaction that you want, but you're gonna certainly get a reaction. But when I look back over it and I say, okay, well, maybe what Dwyer said, all things work together for the good of them who love God, who are the called according to his purpose. When I really sure enough understand that, I can say what Joseph said. And you know what Joseph said? Joseph said, you know what, your intentions were evil. You meant evil against me. But even though you meant evil against me, God meant it unto good. And what you did, brothers, give high five each other, because what you did ended up saving a whole lot of people. Because if I had not been in this position, do you realize that there's a job that God has called you to that only you can do? Thank you, Holy Ghost. I hear you. Do you realize that there is a job that God has called you to that only you can do? But you got to go through the process. But so many times while you're in the process, you want to put up mailboxes in places that weren't intended to be permanent. I'm speaking to somebody tonight. Take that mailbox down. You've been in a low place long enough. It's time to get out. And understand that if you went from Potiphar's house to the prison, that's not a time to panic. That's not a time to pout. That's a time to pray and say, God, what are you trying to show me in this? Because your prison really wasn't punishment. Sometimes that prison that you're in was actually promotion. What do you mean promotion? It was the next step on the journey. It's somebody that you need to meet. It's somebody that you need to connect with. And God has to take you from where you were because you were comfortable. You were on enough avenue, and enough avenue was enough for you. So you were good there, but that wasn't the destination. That wasn't the destination. That was not the destination. God intended for us, or he still intends for us, to make it to the palace. What did he say? He said, let not your heart be troubled. Ye believe in God, believe also. I know people don't talk about heaven no more, but I'm here. But you believe in God, believe also in me. For in my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you, that where I am, you may be also. And if I go, I'm going to come again and receive you unto myself. If it were not so, come on, talk to me, somebody. Grandmama said it like this: every day I'm sending up timber because I'm trying to get ready for my mansion. So, hey, we got work to do. This prison, this Potiphar's place, this pit, just pit stops on the pilgrimage towards your purpose. If this message has blessed you, do me a favor, share this episode with someone that needs to hear it. Share this episode with someone because yeah, all of us at some point have been done wrong by somebody who was close to us. But tonight, after hearing this, you'll be able to look at him and say, you did me wrong. But it's cool. You know why it's cool? Because now I am in the place, thank you, Emmanuel, in the place of God. I'm right where God wants me to be. You couldn't have told me 5 years ago that I'd be here now. You couldn't have told me. You could not have told me that I'd be. But now I'm exactly, Emmanuel Thomas, I'm exactly where God wants me to be. If you're not following us, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, at The Intellectual Stew, TikTok, all of them. And remember this on my way out of here, because I've given you all an opportunity. I was waiting on you to call. I was waiting on you all to tap in, but you didn't. So I'm going to bed. But remember this, the world is changing. My question for you is, why do you remain the same? Hey, we're on the path to better.
Intellectual.